A dense fog clung to the earth like a secret, wrapping the old cemetery in a shroud of unease. The ancient iron gate, its rusted bars barely holding on, creaked as Elena pushed it open. Night had long claimed the sky, leaving only a cold, indifferent moon to illuminate the gravestones of Willow's End. Tonight, every sound, the soft crunch of gravel underfoot, the distant rustling of dead leaves, and the occasional mournful cry of an owl, seemed to whisper of something lurking in the darkness. Elena had come to Willow's End driven by a mix of morbid curiosity and a desperate need to understand the mysterious disappearance of her cousin, Daniel. The locals spoke in hushed tones of the cemetery's curse, how the dead did not rest, and how shadows moved on their own beneath the crooked tombstones. Armed with nothing but a battered notebook, a flashlight that barely cut through the murk, and an insatiable urge for answers, she stepped onto the overgrown path. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. As she walked deeper into the cemetery, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were following her every move. Tombstones, worn smooth by the passage of time, jutted out from the ground at odd angles. Names and dates were etched into their surfaces, many of them blurred beyond recognition. One inscription caught her eye, a single, trembling handprint chiseled into stone, as if left by someone, or something, that had tried to warn of an impending fate. The deeper Elena ventured, the more the oppressive silence pressed in on her. At one point, the only sound was the distant toll of a bell, echoing through the night as if marking the passage of souls. With every step, her pulse quickened, and her breath came in shallow gasps. The forest beyond the cemetery seemed to hold its own secrets, but here, among the relics of forgotten lives, the past was disturbingly present. Near the center of the cemetery stood an old mausoleum, its heavy stone door partially ajar. It beckoned to her like a dark promise of forbidden truths. Elena hesitated only a moment before pushing it open. Inside, the air was colder, and the silence was absolute. A silence so complete that her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Faded murals and cracked marble statues watched her from shadowed recesses, their features worn and mournful. She advanced slowly, flashlight trembling in her grip. On a dusty pedestal lay a journal, its cover as dark and weathered as the night itself. The pages, yellowed with age, were filled with hurried, desperate scrawlings. The journal described nightly visits from an unseen presence, an entity that seeped into the minds of those who dared disturb the dead. The writer mentioned whispers that drove men to madness, and the lingering feeling that the cemetery itself was a living thing, hungry for souls. As Elena read, a sudden gust of cold wind snuffed out her light, plunging her into darkness. In that moment of utter blackness, a whisper slithered around her ears, a sound so soft it might have been imagined. Elena's heart hammered in terror. She fumbled for her flashlight, finally coaxing it back to life. But the beam revealed only the same oppressive gloom. Shadows shifted at the edge of her vision, forming shapes that seemed almost human, only to dissolve when she tried to focus on them. Steeling herself, she continued her search for clues about Daniel's disappearance. The journal hinted that Daniel had come here seeking answers to a family secret, a secret tied to the restless dead of Willow's End. As she stepped back outside, the chill of the night was amplified by the eerie glow of the moon. In the distance, she noticed a solitary figure moving slowly among the gravestones. At first, Elena thought it was a trick of the fog, but the figure grew clearer with each passing moment. Clad in a long, dark coat and with a face hidden in shadow, the person seemed to drift effortlessly from one tomb to another. Without thinking, Elena followed at a safe distance. The figure's steps were soundless, as if gliding over the ground, and it led her toward the far edge of the cemetery where the gravestones clustered thickly beneath ancient trees. Suddenly, the figure stopped in front of an ornate family crypt. The door, embossed with faded symbols, creaked open under its unseen touch. Elena approached cautiously, drawn by both dread and a need to know. As she peered inside, her flashlight revealed rows of empty niches, but one niche at the back held something unexpected, a single, freshly turned mound of earth, disturbed as if someone had been buried there only moments before. Her mind raced. Could this be Daniel's final resting place? No, his body had never been found. Instead, it looked as if the earth itself had been ripped away by something enormous, leaving a gaping void. From that moment, the air seemed to thicken, and an oppressive pressure settled over her chest. The whispering returned, louder now, a chorus of mournful voices that pressed in on her mind. A sudden sound, like the clatter of chains, shattered the oppressive silence. Elena spun around to see the cloaked figure standing behind her, its eyes gleaming with a strange, otherworldly light. She tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. The figure's presence was overwhelming, and the whispering swelled into a cacophony that drowned out all rational thought. Desperate, Elena backed away until she reached the crumbling wall of a mausoleum. The figure advanced slowly, each step deliberate, as if it were savoring her fear. She clutched the journal to her chest, its pages fluttering as if in a storm, and turned to flee. But the cemetery itself seemed to conspire against her. The paths twisted unpredictably, and the gravestones appeared to shift positions when she wasn't looking. As panic surged through her, the once familiar layout of Willow's End became an endless labyrinth of despair. The whispering voices now took on a mocking tone, chanting her name with malevolent glee. Every direction led to dead ends, and every rustle of leaves and groan of stone was a reminder that she was not alone. At last, as if drawn by fate, she found herself before the grand iron gate through which she had entered. With shaking hands, she pushed against it, but it resisted as though held fast by unseen forces. The cloaked figure was almost upon her, its form blurring at the edges with darkness. In one final surge of adrenaline, Elena slammed her shoulder against the gate. It buckled under the pressure, swinging open with a shriek of metal. Without looking back, she ran into the night, the terrible sounds of Willow's End chasing her until she reached the safety of a distant road. Only then did she allow herself to slow, her body trembling with exhaustion and fear. The whispers still echoed in her mind, a reminder that some secrets, once uncovered, cannot be easily forgotten. In the weeks that followed, Elena's nights were haunted by nightmares of shifting gravestones, ghostly figures, and the cold, relentless gaze of that cloaked presence. Though she had escaped the cemetery's immediate clutches, its horror had become a part of her, a lingering dread that no amount of daylight could ever fully dispel. And every time she passed a cemetery, a chill would run down her spine, as if Willow's End were silently calling her back to face the whispers of the dead.